Stargate Voyager.
Hey guys, well, in case you have been living under a rock the past few days and somehow missed the big news, a groundbreaking discovery at Stonehenge has literally left scientists and archaeologists stunned. And many have already been writing articles about this and making videos about this incredible new discovery. I believe the UK Guardian first broke the story, and I'll link that in the show notes. But Megalithomania and Andrew Collins and Hugh Newman put out a great video on the Megalithomania YouTube channel, really breaking this down in depth. I'll link that. I saw Johanna James did a great video on her TikTok and Instagram breaking it down. So there's been a lot of great content out about this. Jimmy Corsetti as well on Twitter has been putting out great nuggets of truth about this discovery. But being that I was just there at Stonehenge just several weeks ago, I wanted to kind of give my own take on this new exciting discovery and feature some of my footage that I captured of the site. And if you're watching on YouTube or Spotify, anywhere where they allow video podcasts, you're going to see this footage. But before I jump into this exciting new discovery, just a quick reminder to please subscribe to this podcast from wherever you like to listen, whether that's YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever. And if you can, go the extra step and give me a 5-star rating if you can, and even give me a comment. That really helps me break through the algorithms and climb the charts and help other people find this podcast. So I'd really appreciate that if you can do that. And again, I just want to thank all of you for your support, for tuning in each week and supporting me. Thanks so much. So let's dive into this. Now, new research reveals that the so-called altar stone, which is buried at the center of Stonehenge and weighs approximately 6.5 tons, and I should say it measures 16 feet long, that it was transported some 5,000 years ago, not from Wales as previously believed, but from the northern coast of Scotland. This would be a distance of 400 plus miles away. Now, by analyzing crystals within the altar stone, scientists and geologists were able to prove that it possessed a unique signature that matched only a very specific stone that was found, again, on this northeast corner of Scotland. Rob Ixer, an honorary senior research fellow at the University College in London, stated that the astonishing find, quote, doesn't just alter what we think about Stonehenge, it alters what we think about the whole of the late Neolithic, end quote. Well, I am glad that Rob and many of his colleagues are coming to the conclusion that I and many other alternative history researchers have been shouting for years, that the ancients were far more advanced than we have been led to believe. To help put this point in perspective, consider Stonehenge's largest trilithons. These are the immense lintel-topped Saracen stones that stand approximately 25 plus feet tall and weigh 40 tons. Again, if you're watching on video, you're going to see footage of these massive lintels, trilithons. These things were transported from 16 miles away. Let that sink in for a minute. 16 miles away, these massive 40-ton colossal stones were transported. Now, 16 miles away, it might not seem far in our modern terms of thinking, but 16 miles, that's like 15, 20 minutes away by car going 50 miles an hour. Yet the mainstream narrative would have us believe that somehow Neolithic ancient people with primitive tools somehow moved these colossal stones 16 miles without the use of the wheel. Consider that. And now we have this sandstone altar stone that weighs 6.5 tons. Again, that's clearly not close to 40 tons, but 6.5 tons is still massive. And this thing is 16 feet long and it's 4 feet wide. So this is still a massive stone, 6.5 tons. And again, we are supposed to believe that primitive people with primitive tools somehow drug this monstrosity the entire length of Britain before the creation of the wheel. Again, how was this huge stone, 6.5 tons, transported from the islands off the coast of Scotland onto the British mainland and then hauled overland all the way to the Salisbury Plain through dense forests and possibly even over mountains? Again, if it came overland the whole way, it was over mountains. How is this possible? Unless the ancients were far more sophisticated than we know, even possessing lost ancient technology. The point I am trying to make here is that these ancient engineers, I believe, in my humble opinion, were far more advanced than we know and that we have been led to believe. Now, as I stated earlier, Hugh Newman of Megalithomania and author Andrew Collins put out a great 30 plus minute video breaking down this discovery on the Megalithomania YouTube channel. I'm going to link that here in the show notes. I really highly suggest that you watch that. But Andrew made several key points that I thought were very valid that I wanted to share in this video. Again, to further the point that these ancients were far more sophisticated than we know, Andrew states that this altar stone is perfectly aligned towards sunrise at the time of winter solstice and sunset at the time of the summer solstice. And although it lies flat on the ground now, it is likely that this stone once stood dead center at the middle of Stonehenge. And Andrew believes and even writes in his books that Stonehenge actually functioned in ages past as a sonic temple. That it represented the universe in stone, and that its primary purpose was to generate sound and frequency, the sound of the universe itself. This may sound overly fantastic to some, but again, when you start looking into the geometry and the science of Stonehenge, there is something to this, I believe. Now, Andrew has found what appears to be 10-sided dodecahedral geometry that is encoded into Stonehenge. You can literally see images of a dodecahedron, 10 sides, that overlays perfectly with Stonehenge. If you look at it from a bird's eye view, people have made this graphic. Now, Collins believes that the significance of this underlying geometry fits perfectly within Stonehenge's size and dimensions. So this geometry could not occur anywhere else other than this particular latitude. So this latitude was seen by the builders of Stonehenge as incredibly important. For example, Stonehenge was aligned around 3000 BC towards where Orion set on the horizon, the same point the sun sets at the time of the winter solstice. And so Andrew states how he believes that this whole site, with its alignments towards the sun and the moon and the recording of the eclipses, is meant to synchronize into cyclical times so that it can resonate with the universe as a whole. Now, if you're watching it by video, I don't think you could see this behind me on my back shelf, but here is the little 3D model of Stonehenge that I bought on my last trip to England. I'll zoom in on the camera here so you can see it. I thought this was a very cool souvenir. And so you can see the different layers of Stonehenge and how this altar stone, although lying flat now near the center there, would have once stood straight up in the very center. Again, according to Andrew Collins, it's like Stonehenge is some type of giant megalithic musical instrument generating sound on various frequencies. It's incredible to consider. Were the ancient engineers of Stonehenge actually trying to replicate the primordial frequency of creation? Again, watch Andrew in Megalithomania's videos for more on that part. Something else to note is that the original ancient name for Stonehenge was the Giant's Dance. And I highly recommend you get Hugh Newman's book, um, The Giants of Stonehenge in Ancient Britain. Actually, it's Hugh Newman and Jim Vieira wrote this. And they go in depth on this topic also of the ancient secrets of Stonehenge and talk about the Giants' Dance and the legends connecting Stonehenge to giants, as crazy as that might sound. But more importantly, not to be missed in the Giants' Dance name is that the Giants' Dance again hints at music. It hints at resonance, at frequency. Andrew Collins also noted in 1899, a famous English writer, a guy named Thomas Hardy, wrote, quote, "If a gale of wind is blowing, the strange musical hum emitted by Stonehenge can never be forgotten," end quote. So even in 1899, it was known that Stonehenge was related to frequencies, to musical humming. Very interesting. And then there are also reports from present day security guards, apparently, that even they hear strange sounds coming from the stones at night. As Andrew states, these megalithic engineers had an incredible understanding of the cosmos, the universe, physics, and science. So, who were the builders of Stonehenge? Well, Andrew Collins refers to them as the grooved ware culture, from the Orkney Islands, which would have been circa 3200 BC, and that they spread down into Britain and created this incredible ritual landscape over a span of about 1500 years. Andrew also points out that there are 3 Mesolithic post holes that are located about a few hundred meters away from Stonehenge. And these post holes would have held massive 40 plus foot tall wooden posts. Obviously, the posts are not there any longer, but there's modern day archaeological markers marking these ancient post holes. Now, according to radiocarbon dating, these post holes date, get this, to approximately 7,000 to 8,000 BC. You heard that right, 7,000 to 8,000 BC. The point is, they predate Stonehenge by thousands of years. And the deeper point is that this is a massive, ancient, sacred landscape. Now, I want to close this episode with some information from Maria Wheatley. She is author of the book, The Secret History of Stonehenge, Ancestral Mysteries and Lost Civilizations. I just had the privilege of meeting Maria on my Mysteries of England tour. It was a privilege to meet her. She is an incredible historian when you hear her speak and read her books. And I'm currently reading this book now, and I'm going to have Maria on hopefully soon to dive into these mysteries of England and Stonehenge even deeper. But I noticed when news of this Stonehenge discovery broke, Maria put out a message on her personal Facebook, and she stated, quote, "All the talk at the moment about the altar stone at Stonehenge was brought from Northeast Scotland, but there's more." So in her book, The Secret History of Stonehenge, Maria points out that there was originally 2 altar stones, not one. There was 2. One was light and one was dark. It was the yin and the yang, she says. So 2 come from afar. The missing one was stolen by King James the First and the Duke of Buckingham in 1624, and it was carted away to St. James Palace in London, literally stolen by royal decree. And Marie is seeking its current whereabouts. But the point is, the truth is, she says, there were 2 stones at the heart of Stonehenge, not one. So thank you, Maria, for this incredible piece of information. Now, I've saved the best piece of information for last, and this also comes from Maria, again, in her book, The Secret History of Stonehenge. I'll try to link this book in this video, in this episode, or in the show notes. But Maria writes about the long-headed civilization of Britain, ancient Britain, this ethereal-looking humanoid race. Now, I want to read straight from her book. She says, quote, mainstream archaeology have largely dismissed the long-headed culture of ancient Britain. Even though Victorian archaeologists and anthropologists meticulously took measurements of their skulls and skeletons, never once did they reconstruct what they found. Had they done so, they would have seen a human being that looked radically different from ourselves, with a somewhat otherworldly, ethereal appearance. This long-headed civilization of the British Isles and some parts of Europe may have been the genesis of folkloric beings such as elves, pixies, and the fae. Indeed, their appearance offers the possibility that they were completely different species. Associated with the European long-headed civilizations are dolmens, long barrows, cairns, and etc. End quote. So fascinating information there from Maria Wheatley in her book, The Secret History of Stonehenge. Again, I'm going to have her on soon to discuss this way in depth. So I wanted to share this critical piece of information because I was literally just in England several weeks ago on our Mysteries of England tour with Hugh Newman and Maria Wheatley. We saw Stonehenge. We visited all the ancient Neolithic sites. And one day we were at Avebury, one of the grandest and hugest stone circles and archaeological sites there in England. And Avebury is massive. We were there for hours, and our time was winding down. We were getting ready to leave, and somebody in our group told me, hey, Derek, have you seen the strange skulls in the museum? Well, my ears perked up when I heard strange skulls. If you know anything about me, I am fascinated by elongated skulls and strange humanoids, if I can say that. I was like, what are you talking about? They're like, there's a little museum right around the corner. You know, Avebury is this massive site. There's literally a village built into the center of it with shops. There was a little bookstore, again, where you can buy a lot of these awesome books. And there was also a little museum with artifacts and skeletons. And it was like $6 to get in. So I paid my $6, ran in there, blew past most of the artifacts in there. I was on a mission to find strange skulls. And sure enough, there they were. And if you're watching on video right now on Spotify or YouTube, you are going to see footage of what I believe Maria Wheatley was just describing. The ancient ethereal looking humanoids of ancient Britain. You can see these entities, if you want to call them that. Some might call them ancient humans that were cradle headboarded. To me, I see too many genetic markers to think these are just cradle boarded ancient humans. Not only does the skull elongate in the back, but the face on these it's got this skinny face. And after I saw this, I immediately ran to Maria, and she was basically trying to tell me then, this was before I was reading her book, that this is this long-headed culture, this long-headed civilization that could be the genesis of all the folkloric tales of elves and pixies. And again, these ancient elongated skulled, what I call humanoids, have been found at Stonehenge. They've been found at Avebury. They've been found unearthed in a lot of these dolmens and long barrows. I believe there is an exact link between this ancient hybrid race and these ancient structures, whether we're talking about, again, Stonehenge, Avebury, the long barrows. To me, this is incredible information. Other than Maria Wheatley and maybe Hugh Newman, I'm not hearing hardly anybody talk about this angle in this piece of information. So, to close, the truth is the mysteries of Stonehenge just got a whole lot deeper. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Again, reminder to subscribe and give me a 5-star rating if you enjoyed this episode. And until next time, keep exploring.